All righty, we're about to get started momentarily. Thank you guys for attending. Let everyone come in. All righty. Well, I want to get started on time. I'm Angelica Harris, and I'm excited to give the webinar today. Let me turn this music off. On scholarships, how you guys can earn over $100,000 in scholarships for college. Who wants to be awarded over $100,000, right? We know how expensive college has gotten. Before, actually, I want to start off with just a little activity. Give me a thumbs up if you have applied to at least one scholarship. It's okay if you haven't. I know we have some underclassmen on the Zoom. So if you applied to at least one scholarship, give me a thumbs up. And if you feel brave enough, go ahead and just drop in the chat and let everyone know what scholarship it was. Okay, well, super excited. I did see a couple of thumbs up. Good job for applying to scholarship. So the objective of this call is to share, some of my strategies of how I was offered so much money in college scholarships and how you guys can apply those strategies to your own personal portfolio, and maximize your potential, because this college is so expensive, and let's help our parents out. Okay, how about that? So the agenda for today, I'm going to share my scholarship story, then talk about the different types of scholarships. So we'll go over just some definitions, and then I'm going to bust some myths, some scholarship myths. Then discuss about finding and winning scholarships. Then talk about the importance of test scores and top tutors for us. And I'll save some time for questions. And for those who stay until the end, I will raffle off a gift. Okay, so for those who don't know me, I'm Angelica Harris, and I'm the founder and CEO of this platform called Top Tutors for Us. The mission is to close the racial standardized testing gap. And just kind of how I got started with Top Tutors for Us, I never thought in a million years I would be a standardized test prep coach, run a standardized test prep company that's nationwide. But we never know where life takes us. But anyway, in high school, I did really well in the classroom, made A's. But when it came time for the ACT, my score was super low. I had a 16 in the 11th grade. I tried traditional test prep platforms, couldn't get my score up. But long story short, I actually left my brick and mortar school, went homeschooled, built my own prep program, got my score up by 16 points, and then was offered over $1.5 million in college scholarships. Yes, 1.5 million with a M in scholarships, and went to a university called Washington University in St. Louis, where I completed 3 degrees in finance and computer science, and then a master's in computer science. And along the way, I was always a test prep tutor, and then founded like Top Tutors for Us, which does really great work in helping students increase their test scores. So, going the wrong way. Let's talk about scholarship strategies. So, different types of scholarships. There's talent-based, so that's the athletic scholarships. There's athletic, music-based, like any type of really great talent. Um, Most of the time it's athletic scholarships. Need-based, so um if your family makes underneath a certain amount, then you can qualify for need-based scholarships. So at Washington University, they made a pledge where, um, and also a lot of top Ivy League, universities have made this pledge that if you get admitted into a one of the into their university and your parents make underneath a certain threshold, typically it's around like $75,000. Um, they will cover, they guarantee no loans taken out for tuition. So, um, that's really amazing. So just a little strategy, parents, watch your income. Um, that's so like if you're kind of on the threshold of like, hey, whether you're trying to make more money and your child's in 11th grade, just think strategically. It's probably best to kind of hold off because you actually have to submit your taxes, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, to universities, to show verification of your income. And if you qualify for need-based, and your child will receive the need-based scholarship. But if you make too much money, your child's not eligible for the scholarship. Then there's outside scholarships. So scholarships that are given outside of the universe, outside of universities. Merit-based scholarships, so like academic scholarships. And community-based scholarships was kind of like Mary's outside scholarships, but these are from like organizations, typically nonprofits, foundations. Um, could be from like local banks, local scholars. Many times they have scholarships for um, students trying to go to college. Okay, so first myth, scholarships are only for perfect students. This is definitely false. Now, yes, you want to maintain a great GPA, because there are scholarships, many scholarships that do have a cutoff at, especially the big ones around like 3.5 GPA. But really what committees are looking for is, does the student align with their missions and goals? So, has anyone on this call heard of the word yield? Yeah, so yield in terms of college admissions. Okay, so I'm just gonna go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so some people are telling me no, they have not. It's important to think about, like, yes, we're trying to apply for scholarships. But think about if you're on the other side of the table and you're admitting students into your university or you're awarding scholarship money, like you just put yourself in their shoes. And it's important to understand like how colleges achieve their rankings, how colleges make financial decisions. So a big part of it is something called yield, and I'm actually sharing a new screen. So, this is generated from AI because don't we love AI? So in college admissions, I'm just going to read blankly what they say, and then I'll just go over why this is important and how this applies to you all. So in college admissions, um, yield is the percentage of admitted students who choose to enroll at a college. It's calculated by dividing the number of enrolled students by the total number of students offered admissions in a given year. So colleges want this number to be as high as possible. Why do they want this number to be as high as possible? One, it's very useful to predict enrollment. Think about in terms of colleges' viewpoint. So colleges have to make investments in terms of staff. So they need to know about how many students they're going to have in their freshman year class so they know how many staff members to hire. They need to think about like dorm rooms, um, just the overall just operating a university with thousands of students. So they need to have a predictor of how many students will attend. So if this is the formula for calculating the yield and colleges want this as high as possible, then they want to have they want their numerator to be as high as possible, right? For my math people, they want this number to be as high as possible, enrolled students. So um, they typically back, if you think about when your parents were applying to colleges, um, it used to be about like, okay, if this student had a high GPA, had a high test score, they automatically got this scholarship. Now, colleges are really caring about, does this student align with their missions and goals of this of our scholarship packet? And those are typically the students that will they will get those scholarships. So because they're more likely to enroll into that university. So personally, I applied to a lot of colleges that I really didn't care about. And the ones that I got into were the ones that I really aligned personally with those committee with those scholarships vision. So for instance, I was a John B. Irvin Scholar at Wash U, and the scholarship really values diversity, community, and that was everything that I was doing in high school. So it aligned with my project. So this is just something to think about. Um, it's that A word. So I want everybody to write that down in their notes. Alignment. That's really just how you get a lot of scholarships is like, do you align with that scholarship's goals and missions? Another really good example that's recent, I know of a student that got admitted into UVA. Um, I can't remember the specific scholarship name, but UVA wanted to make a lot of want to expand their footprint in India. And this student his project in high school was about eliminating waste and a lot of trash in India, and he was awarded that scholarship. And I'm sure there are a lot of other students that had very similar GPAs and test scores, but like that probably had higher GPAs and test scores than his, but he was awarded it because he really aligned with their scholarships, vision, and goals. So, yep, write down this A word, alignment. Um, this is what you should be thinking about. This is how you get a lot of scholarships. Okay. Next, scholarships are too competitive to win. So definitely don't count yourself out. It's, quality over quantity, alignment. And I'm gonna be using the word alignment a lot and quality over quantity. So this is actually what we teach in our ACT prep program. We rather students get more questions right than rush through the whole test and make a lot of careless errors. So you're actually a lot more and I'm gonna talk about finding specific scholarships a little bit later that really align with your, backgrounds. So another myth, scholarships only cover tuition. False. Okay, so you have to you also want to be um very like the college admissions process is um it's very like college is very expensive. Like colleges, like it's, the cost for 4-year university, it's well over what now, nearly like what, $300,000 for 4 years? Something crazy. When you count everything. So tuition, room and board, right? So some colleges allow students to stack, outside scholarships. So, for instance, when I applied to Vanderbilt, and the reason why I landed on WashU, so Vanderbilt, I was given a merit-based scholarship, and I also had a ton of outside scholarships. Vanderbilt, it was in very fine print, had that any kind of outside scholarships, they would actually reduce my merit-based scholarship. Okay. And um, yeah, so whereas WashU said that no, the merit-based scholarship that we awarded you, that's yours, and your outside scholarships you can stack. So this was super important because I had so much excess scholarship money that WashU was actually writing me a check every semester, right? So I don't think that's talked about a lot that you actually can, if you are, depending on the university you're trying to get into, you actually can get a check, get paid to go to college. Does anyone know that? That's true. Okay, yeah, it's totally doable. Okay, next, scholarships are only for high school seniors. This is definitely false. Okay, someone said they did not know that. All right, well, I'm glad I'm teaching you guys. That's a goal. Some new information. um, so can I just can like folks on the call just put in the chat like what grade you're in? If you're like a senior, just put 12th. If you're an 11th or ninth or 10th, definitely let me know so I know who's on this call. Okay, so we got some 12th graders. Okay, 11th, some 12th. Great. Okay, well, you're probably not gonna like what I say for the 12th graders on here. Start early. You um So actually, students can start receiving scholarships as early as 7th grade. Did anyone know that you can start receiving scholarships that early? So, um, yeah, like you want to start this process as early as possible. It is very competitive and it's also time consuming. I mean, just think about like as a senior, well, seniors like just amount of work that 12th graders have with the applications, scholarships, senior activities, courses. Like there's so much going on senior year, and it's just really hard to balance everything, manage everything. So the sooner you guys start this process, the better. And my advice is to get organized. So I actually used to, I'm not sure how you guys currently organize your scholarships. Does anybody have like has anybody started like outlining, planning scholarships they hope to apply for? Yeah, a spreadsheet. You definitely want a spreadsheet, use Google Sheets, share it with your mom, share it with, your guardian, your friend. and you want to have your friends and family help you find scholarships that really like suit you. So I remember my aunt actually found this scholarship in the newspaper paper called the Sarah Scholarship. So I played golf in high school, and it was for like female golfers. And I was like, oh my God, like my aunt found it. And then she sent it to me and I actually won it. It was for $2,000 each year. So total of $8,000. And that was just like, you know, it was just like nice, like change, money to have, excess money. So start early and also apply to scholarships early. Sometimes committees select their recipients, their awardees before the deadline closes. So I definitely recommend getting a spreadsheet. A Google Sheets works perfectly. Write your scholarship names, write the deadlines. Don't want to miss any deadlines. Write if the scholarship needs recommenders, essays, um, personal statements, resumes, all that sorts of stuff. So um, you just don't, get lose track of all those important details. Oops, I'm going backwards. Okay. Another thing, and this is really why I believe I was offered so much money and scholarships. So for my high school students on this call, you really like college is getting way more competitive. You hear every year that they're they're like universities are hitting record number of applications. So you really want to figure out how can you make yourself different in this process. And that's something like even I'm gonna share my story, like, and I this is like this is really why I was chosen for these scholarships. I don't think there was ever when I went to ceremonies, they always told me about like this is why they gave it to me. And none of those reasons was ever because they're like, oh, Angelica, you got this scholarship because you took AP calculus, okay? Or you know, uh, you had a high test score. It was never because that like, don't get me wrong, like that stuff helps, that checks the benchmark. I mean the criteria, but it was because I had my extracurriculars were really outstanding. So quality over quantity. So when you guys are choosing extracurriculars, do stuff that's really do stuff that's impactful. Um, so for instance, a little about myself, I played golf. Like how many black females do you know who play golf and do it competitively? Not very many. So that already helped me stand out. And secondly, I founded this organization in high school called Angelica's Angels. It did not take a whole bunch of time, um, but it was just super different. So Angelica, and it had a great story behind it. So growing up playing golf, for those who know about golf, like you have to be super quiet. And I have a younger brother who has autism, so he never really, so kids with autism can't really like, be quiet. um, and so essentially I bought golf to his school. I created this PE program where I went to his school just one time a week. And I also fundraised for Angelica's Angels. I think I raised like, it might have been a little bit under $5,000 total, which is not a crazy amount of money, but the story was just really great and the impact was really great. And organizations, committees loved it. Like, and so if you can do something along those lines of like, if you have some kind of project that's super different and impactful and has a good story behind it, that will really make you stand out. So we can do a quick activity, and if you guys can just brainstorm for a couple minutes of a project or anything that you think could that's can be an impactful project to talk about in your application. So if you want to DM me your story, or if you feel brave enough to want to share with everyone, do that too. And just some advice is just like if there's a problem, and that you're helping to overcome this problem and you're also impacting people while doing it. I love them. Keep sending them in to me. I'll just give you guys a couple more minutes. I love them so far. These look really good. Oh, sorry. Someone asked me the question. What was my question? So I was asking to, I was sharing just my impactful project, Angelica's Angels, and how that led to being offered so much money and scholarships. Won so many scholarships with that project. So I was asked. So Angelica's Angels was essentially, I played golf, but my youngest brother has autism, and I essentially started a PE golf class um at his school. So his school is for like was like kids with disabilities, and then I fundraised for it. So I was asking if you can share a project that could turn into something that's like an impactful, impact, um, that they can use for your story. Okay, I'll give like 30 more seconds and then I have to keep moving. But thank you everyone who's been DMing me. I love them. Yeah, I love that. So be different. Like keep in mind there are tens of thousands of students applying for, especially when we think about those highly selective universities. How can you make your application different? And parents who have underclassmen on this webinar, like when you're thinking about like your child joining organizations, like just think about, strategize 4 years down the line when they apply for college. Like what can you do? Like what stuff can they do now that can really set them apart? Um, and really make them stand out um in that very competitive pool. And just some other things I'll mention, especially when it comes to recommendation letters and like, your application is a story. So with my application, my recommender was, so I was a part of this organization that it teaches life skills through the game of golf. And I started when I was a part of the organization when I was like 5 years old, and then continued being a part of the organization. And I was always really involved in that organization. So like everyone in that organization knew me, they knew my character, and the executive director was really like when I asked him for a recommendation letter my 12th grade year, he was super willing. So you want to put yourself in that kind of position where you're a part of an organization that does really great work, and like the people there know you and they're willing to write those recommendation letters. Recommendation letters go a long way. So, um, and lastly, I'll just mention a couple things about GPA and test scores. So I do get this question a lot from parents. They're like, my child's applying to a test optional university. Do they need to take the ACTs or SATs? And this is me, like with not with like I know I'm gonna run a test prep platform, but just me from the outside. I would say yes, that it like test scores do really help, especially if they're strong test scores. Because what we're seeing is students are getting into universities, but not getting merit-based scholarships. So the students that are getting those merit-based scholarships and getting the most money, they're having those higher test scores. So I'm from Louisiana, and like top scholarships, that's the state scholarship. So the higher the students' test scores, um, the more scholarship money they receive. And then in Missouri, there's the Fulbright scholars. The higher the test score, the more Fulbright scholarship money a student can receive. So that's also super important. And then I also want to mention that, um, you know, just we're in this political climate where, especially our students of color, Black students, DE&I, affirmative action, that's like out the door. So um, colleges also need just very objective reasons to enroll students. Okay. Not that, like just unfortunately just how things are right now. And test scores are just like that gives you, just gives you that extra um check mark to even, more reason to let you in. And lastly, I'll mention about like test scores and um having a high test score really helps, especially if you're coming from a high school that's really not as well known to those selective universities. So, as I mentioned, I did go to a really good high school. I went to all girls school from kindergarten to 10th grade, but then I transitioned to an online school, which definitely was not known by those top universities. But because I had a competitive test score, that really put me on a different pedestal where I was like, looked at more seriously because everyone knows like GPAs are different, GPAs, they're different across high schools. So, um, yeah, those are my little 2 cents there. Okay, on to the most important part, finding scholarships. Who just give me, a thumbs up or like in the chat, who's finds it like actually on a scale from 1 to 10, like finds it really difficult finding scholarships, 10 being very difficult, 0 being pretty easy, scholarships that like align with them. Okay, so I'm getting some 6s. Okay, I see a 4. Okay, okay, 8. All right. Yeah. It is pretty difficult. My advice, just remember a few things. One, the bulk amount of your scholarship money is going to come from the university. Um, so when when you think about like if you're trying to get $100,000 scholarship, like that's not going to come from an outside scholarship like an organization that's going to give you $100,000. That has to come from a university. So um do your research on the universities and their mission, and like I said, align your application with their mission statement. I rather you guys focus on applying to fewer universities and fewer scholarships, but really tailoring it um and to each application. And do your research. It takes a lot more effort, I know, to like research universities, their missions, go to their events. Like I know that takes a lot more effort, but your chances of getting it like definitely increases. And my advice for outside scholarships, I'm definitely not a fan of the FastWeb. I know, like, have you guys heard of, like, fastweb.com, like those really big scholarship websites? Yeah, they have like 250,000 people applying to those scholarships. Like, it's so competitive. I don't recommend those at all. I personally have never met anybody who's received those scholarships. So I wouldn't waste your time on FastWeb. I would focus on local organizations that you have high touch points to. So like if you're involved in your church, like, continue being involved in your church, especially if you know if your church gives away scholarships. If your parents' jobs have scholarships, like make that known, you know, like this is people love to give scholarships to students they know. So like you should be, become comfortable talking to committees and um going to like I remember going to it was a part of this golf event, and they award scholarships to high school students. And I introduced myself and shared my story, and they like were able, and so they kept an eye out for my application, and then I was awarded that scholarship. So focus local. Um, also like, the Ronald McDonald's, like the chapter scholarships, um, identity-based scholarships. So if you're like a part of, I know I mentioned golf a lot, but yeah, just yeah, local and very specific. Okay, and we talked a lot about winning scholarships already, but really aligning yourself to the scholarship's mission is how you're gonna win. It's how like it's gonna um be how you win those scholarships. So quality over quantity. And another thing, I know there's social media, everyone loves to post all sorts of stuff, but keep a positive digital footprint. Don't want to mess up your brand. Colleges do Google students. Did you guys know that? They do. They search your social media. So keep I'm not gonna tell you what to do in your social media, but just know they Google you. Um, yeah. And local scholarships have fewer applicants than you think. Okay, so I jumped ahead of myself talking about test scores. But yeah, it does help when it comes to scholarships. And I've seen personally, and also students that we have in our program. And the biggest thing, just being organized in this process, starting early. Getting those recommendation letters, request in early to your, teachers, counselors. Just know if you're like a senior, your college and your counselor is going to be inundated with requests from other classmates about recommendation letters. So what you don't want to happen is your teacher not filling out your recommendation letter, not doing it because you told them too late. So my advice, start early. Okay. And yeah, Top Tutors for Us. This platform, like I said, I've founded, and on average, we increase students' ACT scores by 7 composite points and SAT scores by over 120 points. And we, yeah, connect students with culturally competent tutors. Plus, we are a test prep and academic skill building platform. So we're increasing students' math, reading, and writing skills to increase their test scores. So yeah, check us out at toptutorsforus.com and continue to follow us if you're not already on our socials, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. And yeah, hope to see you guys at my next webinar in 2 weeks. But before we head out, I do want to do a raffle and answer any questions. Does anyone have any questions?
Hi, I have a question,
Mhm.
Erica. I know you say you don't like Fast Web. Are there other websites that students can search for, possible scholarships outside of like a Fast Web or like you mentioned, local organizations and identity-based scholarship platforms?
Yeah. My advice, one, Google is really helpful. So, if your daughter, I'm not sure your identity, but for example, I would Google Black um senior in Louisiana, and then I would see a bunch of scholarships on Google. Um, you also can Google like sometimes social media like Facebook and Instagram. If your parents are part of like any kind of affinity groups, like Greeks, um, Deltas, AKAs, they typically have scholarships. They do have scholarships for um, you know, students. They're in the um, and I also recommend a book that I had. It's called the Big Scholarship Book. It's a huge it's only like $20 on Amazon. It looks like this. My mom actually bought it for me, and it's like 1,000 pages, but it's really useful because you can like use the appendix and search like, if you're a I don't know, if your child's into nursing, it's categorized really well, and they give you all the like tons of scholarships all across the country for students in those specific, areas. So, yeah, actually, it's what, $23 through Walmart.com. I think on Amazon it's might be around like $25.
And I guess to add to that, are you familiar with the Infinite Scholars? Um, I guess do they just do you know the criteria or like what a student have to do to qualify for those types of scholarships?
So I didn't apply for the Infinite Scholars program. Um, if you like there's uh United Negro Fund, NAACP, those have scholarships. But typically most scholarships, the criteria is the same. So they're looking for students over a certain GPA, who demonstrate high um who show like, who are excellence inside and outside the classroom. And that's why think having that like project, like one project that's super impactful, that's something you can write on all of your, you know, applications. So I'm looking it up and it says it emphasizes equality, diversity, and inclusion. So like, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And most scholarships are going to have that same like mission statement, um, impact, inclusion, diversity. That's um like people another thing I find that scholarship committees want to give to givers. So like, and that's kind of cliche, but like literally if you are a student who like does stuff that's impactful, like that's like, whoa, that's super cool. Like they want to reward that. Okay. Someone asked me, how are tests biased? So AC those standardized tests, they were put in place um there to disenfranchise Black marginalized communities, trying to get into higher education. And even if you look at the questions that the standardized test asks, like I can even show you some examples, but they're very much focused on like the stories, like I'm just don't want to be honest, but like Eurocentric, um, you know, um, just experiences. So like this English story that I was working with a student on, they're talking about people's hair, that's different across different cultures. Talking about mountains. If you're from like the South where it's super flat, you've like probably haven't seen mountains before. So some of those stories are just super distant. So when a student sees that on the test, that sometimes can freak them out. And we're like, yeah. So even though the question might ask about a certain concept, is just like how they apply it is, I think, unfair. And then tests is also based on like also access to test prep. Test prep is traditionally very expensive. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, let's see. I think I have another one. Okay. Thank you. And I love everyone's impactful. Yes, of course. Yeah, definitely, I'll do a raffle right now. Um, yeah, of course. Okay. Yep, no problem. All righty. Well, if no one has any other questions, let's do a raffle, and that will be the end of this webinar. And I hope to see everyone next time in 2 weeks. I will be we'll be talking about the ACTs versus SATs. So this is like more geared towards underclassmen, 11th graders, sorry, seniors. But yeah, if you know of any underclassmen, or parents, let them know about um the webinar. So let's see. Okay, so this is going to be for one free session. So if you purchase a package, we'll discount one free session from your, so essentially you'll save $75 from your packet. Oops. All righty, I think I got everybody. Okay, if I miss your name, let me know. But oh, wait, you can't even see the spinning wheel. I fall. Okay, now you can see it. Okay, 3, 2, 1. All righty, congratulations, Ava. All righty, with that, I appreciate everyone for coming and hope to see you guys next time. Also, don't forget to follow us on our socials. Have a good night.